I met with a client about a month and a half ago. I set his business up in the software, set it up, right? So he runs landscape construction and he also runs maintenance. Okay. And so we basically went through all of his overhead and we figured out that, 40% of his overhead needed to go towards landscaping. So we adjusted all of that. And so we got all that set up and then we built all of his templates out. And then I asked him, do you have anything you want to bid out? And he wanted to bid out a retaining wall. So we ended up bidding out a retaining wall and got all of his timing done. And when we were done bidding it out, I asked him before we looked at the price, do you think that this is a realistic time frame to finish this wall? And he's like, yeah, dude, I think it's completely realistic. All right. So we went to the markup page and it showed like, if I remember correctly, it was like $8,200.
Okay.
And he freaked out. He's like, I can't sell that. I can't sell. No, that's ridiculous. And I was like, well, okay, we need to go back. Do you think that the timing's off? And he's like, no, I don't. I'm like, okay, well, do you think that, I don't think our costs are off. He's like, no, I don't think our costs are off. It's just too much money. And I was like, well, okay, if the labor's not off and the material isn't off, we know that we're not off on our overhead. You have to go back to the profit genie and set your sights lower. Okay, let's do that. So we went back to the profit genie and we lowered the price or the
profit at the end of the year.
Right?
Yeah.
We lowered it and we went back and then we went and the reason why we were doing this because he has his own system, which everybody does, right? And how to bid. And so his system was basically saying that the retaining wall needed to be like, maybe it was like 12. I think our price on the software came out to like 12 grand and he was at 8 grand.
Okay.
With his software, right? With his whatever spreadsheet software.
Spreadsheet.
So we basically had to go back and adjust the profit genie. Well, we finally got the profit genie down to 0 and we still weren't at the price that he was bidding his work out. And I was like, dude, you're not even covering overhead with your landscape construction. I said, what that tells me is that your maintenance is carrying the landscaping. He goes, no, it's not. No, the landscaping carrying the maintenance. And I was like, but clearly it's not, because you should be charging $12,000 for this wall and you're charging 8. And I guess what blew me away at that instant is that he wouldn't believe it. Like I think he thought something was wrong with the software. Something was wrong, and something was wrong. But what it was wrong is the software finally told him the truth. And I hate saying this because it sounds like I'm that, what is it? The movie, A Few Good Men, but really he couldn't handle the truth. Likewise, I just met a company this week who's in the software. They did their first bid. And once she got the bid done, she compared it to the bid that they came up with through their spreadsheets. And she said, Kelly, I'm $50,000 low. So we went through the spreadsheet and we found some things, and it got to the point where she was $30,000 low. Now, this again, I told her, I said, okay, now we're probably apples to apples and you're still $30,000 low. What does that mean? Now we have to go back into the profit genie and we're going to have to raise your profit genie so that we can get the price up to where you guys are realistically bidding it, right? And I'm concerned that they're going to come back and say, well, this doesn't make any sense because we've never made that kind of money. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you're just spending it on basically equipment. So your taxes are showing that you're only making what you put in the software, but you're not accounting for all the money you've spent on equipment over the last 2 years. And yeah. I know that I'm going to have a really difficult time explaining that to him. And it's just so interesting to me that we have built, in my opinion, I think it's one of the only software on the planet that really legitimately keeps you completely accountable.
Yeah. Do you mind if I make a comment to that?
Please. Yeah, please do.
We were actually just talking about that yesterday, and Adam was just sharing how he was grateful that I made the push to push us in this direction to start using Elevation, because it shifted our mindset on how we look at projects and pricing and how we sell jobs. I would say especially the software is really strong in the sales side of it, where you're able to build those packages and upsell the client and sell that project that way. We have found that that's helped us tremendously. But I think more importantly too, the fact that we're charging a lot more. Like, we've already made more money than we have previous years.
Okay,
And
stop and say that again, because that is the beauty of the software.
yeah, the fact that the software understands our overhead costs and what we need to make in order to make money, and then how much more we need to make over that to hit our profit at the end of the year. And the fact that it holds us accountable to that, so that way we're not undercutting ourselves and charging less. Getting that mindset that we have to make a certain amount of money every single day that we work, and we can't make deals. In the past, when we would get a client that's pushing on us just so we could get the sale, we would cut the price down, and that cutting the price down only cuts into our bottom line. And
you don't realize how much it cuts into your bottom line.
there's no way of knowing. Yeah, we just don't know. So whereas now we've realized we don't cut deals anymore. This is what we have to make, and this is our price, and we build packages in order to sell the client. So I feel like we are selling more jobs at higher prices, and it's been fantastic.
I love that. Yes, I appreciate that. Back in 1999 or 2000, Greg Whitstock from Aquascapes. He was just starting Aquascapes, and he was sending like paraphernalia, right? He was sending mailers out to all the landscapers, talking about his system, his Aquascape system. We didn't have a dealer in Spokane that sold Aquascapes, but I bought everything that Greg had. I bought his videos on how to build water features. But more importantly, one of the coolest things I learned from him is I think I called in and sent, I bought whatever he had to give, right? And I remember vividly, one of the things that I learned clear back in 2000 was Greg was telling you, this is how you sell your water features, right? And so, your cost on, all of the materials are this much and your labor is this much. And he said, when a client looks at you and says, this is too much, we got to get the price down. He says, great. What would you like to take out?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I remember clear back then, it was this aha moment for me. And I'm like, that's brilliant. And I started doing that. I started looking at clients and be like, totally get that. What would you like to take out? And they would be like, well, I was hoping you could come down. I can't, but we can take things out. Would you like to take the filtration out? Well, no, you just told me how important the filtration was. Oh, what would you like to take out?
Yeah.
But you have to have a system or a confidence in your pricing in order to do that. If you're just grabbing a number somewhere, it's harder to be confident in what you're doing.
That's where that's why we came up with packages, because now you have that ability to say, what would you like to take out? I just sold a project I'm really angry. I'm upset with myself because you asked me if you could go and do a design, okay, with me. I went out to these people's house to meet with them, and it's a very modest house, very modest. Like most guys would have driven up there and been like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Nicest people. And it's modest, but they wanted an outdoor living space. And I sold them a design. I almost called you to go out because it was actually a really cool design. It was awesome. And it ended up being like, it was $120,000 job. And they loved the packages. And they called me up and they said, we only got financing enough for $100,000. We think we have some ways to skim this thing down. I went to their house with my iPad, right? And we went and we worked through it. And I finally got to a point, we got to like 106,000. And I was like, you guys, we're at the point where we can't shave any more off. You either need to do it or you need to bail. And they were like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And it was by shaving things. It wasn't by me cutting them a deal. It was just by, anyway. Yes. I love what you said. That I hope you're okay. Cause I promise you today, I'm going to get my video guy in and I'm going to have him take everything that you said, put it in a video, and we're going to blast that in our ads.
Yeah.
Because it does tell the truth and it does keep you accountable. And some guys they literally can't handle the truth. And it makes me sad.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure why. I mean, maybe just, pride or just a sense that they
I think they're scared.
skeptical.
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to sell at these high at prices. When you know you have to sell at a higher price and you've been struggling already, it's scary.
It is scary.
Yeah. But I think that it is scary initially, but when you understand the power of the packages and communicating that to the customer, I feel like that really helps to leverage that sale, I guess, if you will. I don't know. It helps to sell the job.
Yeah. That first package should be at or below what they were expecting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you're building stair steps for them, and they can't get up to this high price unless they have steps to climb up to that high price.
Ideally, when you're meeting with a client, ideally you should be able to give them a range of the project. Okay. And ideally, package one, like Greg said, should come in right where at the beginning of what you said, or even more ideal, a little bit under what you originally said. And let me tell you how crucially important that is. I met with a client just this couple, like a month ago. It was a high-end client, the perfect client, everything. I mean, you couldn't have had a better situation. She told me everything she wanted. And when we got to the end of the meeting, I sold her design and I basically said that this project's going to be somewhere between 60 and 100. She said, well, she kind of smiled and she said, well, I'm hoping it's at the 60, but I'm sure it won't be. The problem is when I told her that, I hadn't really looked at the access. And because of her really crappy access, there wasn't a way for me to package this thing out because it was, you need to do it all now. And there wasn't any way to come back in. So when I originally gave her the original bid, my lowest package was like 100,000 and it went up to like 112. And it was basically taking out lights, right? I mean, there wasn't any, there just wasn't any other way to do it. And then they were excited. But when I left, they called me up and said, we're not going to spend that. We're out.
Yeah.
And I do think it's because when I sold her the design, if I would have sold her the design and said, this project's going to be somewhere between 90 and 125, she either would have said, I'm not comfortable with that, and I wouldn't have sold the design, or she would have been more prepared to spend that kind of money and had a conversation with her husband.
Yeah.
So given those ranges is really, it is important to hit those ranges when you do the bids. So.
Yeah. Do you get pretty good feedback when you ask what their budget is, when you just, you don't share anything about what you think the project will cost? You just ask them, what do you plan to spend?
I always ask what a budget is. Some people, because they've been screwed so many times, will not tell you their budget.
Yeah.
Some people are embarrassed. And some people look at me and say, we have no idea. And I'm like, that's totally cool. I just want to throw a number out and let's see what I even tell them this. I'll say, I'm going to throw a number out and we'll just see if it freaks you out. And I'll say for this project, sometimes I won't even give a range at that point. I'll say, let me throw a number out. Let's see. I go, does $35,000 freak you out? I'll literally say those exact words. Does 35,000 freak you out? And sometimes they'll be like, freaks me out. Are you kidding me? And I'll be like, listen, then that's it. Like, if that freaks you out, we can't do anything.
Yeah.
And I'm almost like taking it away at that point, right? Then you're really calling their bluff, and then they have to decide, okay, do I really want him to leave? And sometimes they're like, all right, thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. We had no idea. And we leave. Sometimes they'll be like, well, hold on a minute. It freaks me out, but it doesn't mean I can't afford it. Okay. That's good. All right. Now we're talking. Yeah. So then you go back into, we'll say sales mode, but it's really question mode. Now we go back into, all right, what freaks you out about it? What is there something you would want to take out? No, I don't want to take anything out. Okay. All right. So are we good at, $35,000? Let me tell you a story. Okay. Really quick. I wasn't planning on this today, but this is one of the coolest stories in the history of Legacy Landscapes. It's 2009. I'm knocking on doors. I'm running out of work. And Greg was there, man. He was with me the whole time. And I knocked on this door, and the wife answered, and she said, well, yes, we really need to rebuild our deck, but my husband's not home. You need to come back. Now, I went and finished knocking on doors. Funny story. I prided myself in never double knocking on doors. Okay. I always kept track. I wrote down addresses. I forgot to write down that address. Totally forgot that she told me to come back. Double knocked on her door. She answered, gave her the same spiel, and she laughed, and she goes, you were just here. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? Okay, I'm so sorry. She said, well, my husband's home. Let me get him. She gets the husband. He takes me in the backyard. Their backyard is crap. I mean, when I say crap, it was crap. Like literally the only time they went in their backyard was to mow. All right.
Okay.
And he wanted to rebuild his deck. So I go and we look at his deck. I took one step up. It was a deck that was only about 18 inches off the ground, right? One of those decks. I took one step on it. My foot went through the step and it broke. The entire deck was rotten. And he was like, I told you it's rotten. So we started talking, and he wanted to rebuild a deck. And I was like, dude, on a situation like this, you don't want to rebuild a deck. You want to build a patio. That's a conversation for another day. So we started talking, blah, 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 blah. And basically we came to an agreement. Like, he's like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And I said, great. So I sold him a design, and I think the design was like $400 back then, because I gave him half off, whatever. It was awesome. And he goes, and he started to turn away around to go in the house, and he stopped and he looked at me very serious, and he pointed his finger at me. He goes, don't you dare come back with no $60,000 or $70,000 design or bid, because I won't spend it. And I was like, okay, would you spend 30? And he goes, yeah, I'd spend 30. Okay. So now you got a $30,000 sale. So man, I was skipping to my truck. I was like, yes, I got a $30,000 sale. This is dude, I can do this. I can do this. I can design this. Like, I can do this, right? I went on, Greg, I got one, because this was 2009. I was just starting to knock on doors, and I was selling work, but I hadn't really sold a big job yet knocking on doors, right? We were just, getting little bits here and there. So I was all excited. Greg was excited. I go home, I design it. Dude, it came in at $33,000, right? He was going to get a brand new patio, really good sized patio. And I was taking out his entire backyard, and we were just going to redo the grass, redo the sprinklers, put in some nice beds. It was going to be a nice backyard.
Yeah.
I was excited.
Yeah.
Now, in the conversation, his dad had just passed away, right? And his dad left him or bought him this little water feature. Okay. And he said, look, man, it's important to me. I need you to design that water feature. And it's just a little stupid fountain bubble feature, right? It's like not a big deal. So I designed that little bubble feature in I drew a curved patio and I put that little bubble feature right in the crest, the curve of the patio. So, so I set up the appointment. We went to his house. I have the design ready to go, and we're looking at it. And I had the bid, and he's actually excited, right? Like, dude, this is going awesome. So he's excited, and he's like, this is great. He goes, how much is it? And I'm like, dude, it's only $33,000. We're right where you said you wanted to be. And he sat back with a big old smile, and he was like, that's great. Well, his daughter happened to be home from college. So she just came down the stairs, walked into the room, looks at the design. He's like, look what we're going to do. And she looked at it and she's like, oh, you're putting in a fire pit? And he goes, no, we're not putting in a fire pit. And he goes, what do you mean? And she pointed to that little fountain. And she said, isn't that a fire pit? And he goes, no, that's a water feature. Hey, do you put in fire pits? Oh, do we put in fire pits? I was like, yeah, we put fire pits in. Yeah. Would you like one? He's like, well, where would you put it? And I was like, oh, dude, we could actually like step it down and build you like a little pit, like in the ground. Are you serious? What do you do about water? So we start talking about that. Right. Then his wife looks at me and she goes, well, we've been thinking about getting a swim spa. Could you put in a swim spa? And I was like, whoa, what do you think about doing a swimmable water feature? And he gets a big old smile on his face. And he's like, oh, that sounds awesome. Now I'm excited, but I'm kind of pissed because I needed to sell this job. Right. And so now we're talking about a fire pit. We're talking about a water feature, and they now want to extend their patio because they want to do a water feature. But if they're going to do a water feature, they want to buy a hot tub. So now I have to go back to the drawing board. I redesign this thing. Now it's blown up, right? Now it's this huge water feature. They want it swimmable, a freaking fire pit. And then I had to extend the patio. And what was so funny is he looked at me, and originally he said, don't give me no $60,000, $70,000 bid because I won't spend it. And he was right. He didn't spend 60 or 70. He spent $130,000 on that project.
Wow. Interesting.
$130,000 on that project.
And that was in 2009.
Wow.
That was 2009.
Most guys would hear that, don't give me a $60,000, $70,000 price, and they would just end the conversation there. They just shut down and just think, well, there's the roadblock. Can't get through it.
Right. But so there's a lot of psychology involved, right? He told me that. I asked him, would you, this actually, Joshua, this brings us into that 1902 close that I told you I would tell you about, which we're going to talk about at the end of this call. This perfectly brings that up because Zig Ziglar always says, when you're meeting with somebody and you give them the range, this is what you have to think about. Okay. When you give someone a price range and they agree to that price range, you basically just sold that job. Okay. This is really important. So once you know, okay, these people, they're okay with a $30,000 project, especially if you sell them a design. Now they've invested $1,000 with you. Now you know they're serious, right? Okay, I've invested $1,000 with you, and I've agreed to a $30,000 project. That's why it's so important to come back with a bid that gives them at least a $30,000 package. If you don't, you're not a man of your word, and you've screwed yourself. And those are normally the times where I have to give the design fees back. We're not perfect. Okay. Right. But if I told someone, I said, look, I'm selling you a design, it's $1,200. Your price range is going to be somewhere between 30 and 60. I better come back with prices for 30 and 60. If I don't, I'm still going to try. But if they're upset with me, I'm going to give them their money back on design because I misled them. And I'm never taking somebody's money if I misled them.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So he had already committed in his brain to $30,000. So I had to come up with something for $30,000. And then just when the conversation started to explode, then it was like, okay, I have to go with what they were wanting to do. Right.
Interesting. Psychologically, would you say that kind of communicates to him that he has control, that he's, he can get what he wants, but he's only going to spend the money if he wants to spend it and not necessarily be manipulated to spend it?
Yeah, I think the packages allows the client, it allows you to be in control of the sale, but it allows them to choose.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. There's no manipulation involved. But let me tell you what I learned from that project. I learned that people are liars. Okay. I learned that your clients are liars. They're not liars because they're bad people. They're liars because they've been screwed so many times. All right. So what I learned is when a client says, I can't spend more than $30,000 and they are within the parameters of my client that I deal with on a regular basis, I know that what they're really saying is, you're going to have to show me why I should spend more than $30,000.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Because another project the next year, I had a guy knocking on doors for me. He called me up, said, there's a guy, he wants you to come over. His patio's settled. He wants you to rebuild his patio. Awesome. I go out to his house. Any other landscaper literally would have walked out of there with about a $20,000 job. The guy had a small patio, and it settled around the foundation. So it was draining back into the house. This is so good stuff. I love telling these stories. So this is a great meeting today. I'm sorry if I'm not wasting time. So I go to his house, and now I've really learned to ask questions, right? I always ask questions with a means to the end. Is that the way to say it? With the end in sight, right? So like I'll ask them questions like, okay, like I'm not just going to give you a bid on your patio. I'm going to say, hey, well, okay, so we want to redo your patio, and the biggest reason is because you have some slope. And he's like, yeah, that's the reason. And I was like, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? They're like, no. I'm like, do you guys entertain much? Like, yeah, we entertain a lot. Oh, you do? Yeah. Oh, who do you entertain? Oh, this is a true story. We belong to a wine club. Oh, a wine club. Oh, well, how many people's in the wine club? Oh, sometimes we'll have 20, 30 people in our backyard. It's a strong wine club. Oh, okay. And you guys have those parties here? Oh yeah. In the summertime, they always come here. And I'm looking at this patio, and I was like, okay, well, instead of me saying your patio isn't big enough, I ask a question. I'm like, well, do you feel like your patio is big enough to handle that many people? Now, this is how it always goes, right? The husband's like, well, of course it's big enough. And the wife looks at him like he's an idiot. And she's like, no, it's not big enough. What do you mean? Well, honey, they're always sitting out in the lawn. We have chairs in the lawn all the time. And he's like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. And she's like, no, it's not big enough. We would like a bigger patio. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, do you guys meet like in the fall? Well, yeah, we meet in the fall. Well, have you thought about putting in a fire pit? I mean, that extends the livability of your outdoor living space. She's like, oh my God, we love a patio. I mean, a fire pit. And then where I wanted to put the fire pit, there was a keystone, one of those old style keystone retaining walls. And so I just said, well, you guys like this retaining wall? And his wife, no, I hate that wall. I'd like to redo it. So that job ended up, I sold that job for $90,000, and it ended up being $150,000 because I knew how to ask the right questions.
That's really good.
And I think this is important to know because a lot of guys, well, my door knocking guy quit. He quit on me when he found out that I sold them $150,000 job. He made $1,500 from knocking on that door, but he thought I screwed them by selling him $150,000 landscape. So he quit. No joke. True story. And what was sad to me is though that customer was way happier spending $150,000 than he ever would have been spending 20.
Yeah.
And it's none of my business how much money he has to spend. My job is to ask questions. I tell my clients this all the time. I'm not interested in what you want as I am and why you want what you want. Because once I find out why you want what you want, I can come up with ideas that you would have never thought of.
Yeah.
My job is to throw ideas out, and then you can decide, once I give you budgets, you can decide whether you don't want to spend that or not.
Yeah.
But I've always, Greg and I talk about this all the time. It blows me away. People are way happier and more giddy spending way more than they thought they were going to spend because they're excited about it.
The vision and end product is superior, and they get to enjoy that. It's something that you can be more excited about that than you can with a $20,000 project.
Yeah. So anyway, it taught me, that one job taught me. And you know what's funny is, to this day, that customer, about 5 years later, we remain friends. He's a doctor, and at this point he's retired, but 5 years later, we were sitting on his patio, and I told him, I said, I got to tell you something. You saved my company. And he goes, what do you mean? And I told him the story. I was like, I go, Dr. McClellan, you have no idea. Like, if you wouldn't have signed, I would be out of business. And to this day, we still talk about it. And twice, at least 2 or 3 times a summer, I bring cigars to his house. He supplies the scotch, and we'll sit on his patio next to his water feature listening. I sold him a sound system, so we'll listen to music, and we'll just sit on his patio. We'll talk for 2-3 hours, smoking cigars, and I love it. So anyway, he was very pivotal in my business, in my belief, in my mindset shift about what is actually possible to sell to clients. Pretty cool.
Man, that's huge. I think that's I hear the message and what you're communicating, and I love it, but trying to transfer that and trying to internalize it so that I can embody it better, that's going to take some time. And I want to get there, that just to be better at just having that organic conversation and asking those deep questions to get to the why they want what they want.
If you can figure that out, you will never struggle in your business. You'll never struggle. If you can figure their why. What I used to say, Greg, you can make a living selling people what they want. You can make a fortune if you can figure out how to sell them, to figure out why they want what they want.
Right, because they can't imagine. They don't have the same understanding of the situation. What's possible? What's the art of the possible is what you guys are bringing. They're trying to tell you, you got to get from them what they want. You tell them what's possible. And I know I do this with people. It's always frustrated me so much when a contractor comes out and they have no opinions on anything. I want you to have an opinion. I can only go so far. I'm not in this industry. I don't know what's out there, what's possible, what can be done. You got to help people understand it.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. So that kind of brings me into what I wanted to talk about this week with